commentary. But today it really seems appropriate because some news stories are taking turns to the right and to the left, turns that are troubling and need to be thought about. The first thing I noticed today was that the UN is having a meeting about, here it says, this is a generation that has the optimism, the resolve, and the creativity to realize Africa's full potential. That was by Amina Yohamed, on the key role of young people for achieving the global goals in Africa. And what they're discussing at the conference is about economics, as if money, money, money is the solution to the world's problems of chaos and disorder. And honestly, money is not the problem. Our problem is one of ignorance. If we're going to take human rights seriously, we must first take common law rights seriously and place limits and bounds on these holy books and on commercial statutes and on treaties, so that those corporate statutes, maritime admiralty statutes, UCC codes do not overrule human and natural rights out of the box, which is what they do. For instance, in today's address by the Attorney General regarding freedom of religion at a conference on Christian persecution, Attorney General Barr never even mentioned that some religions and their God teach criminal behavior. Specifically, there's double dealing, which in religion is called taqiyya. There's jizya, protection tax racketeering, and there's jihad, which is divide and conquer under the Quran. How can human rights exist when God is said to be teaching criminal behaviors? So long as a so-called religion teaches predatory behavior, there is no respect for human rights, all right? So long as governing entities claim that non-disclosure of national security facts need to be kept secret so that they can war profiteer, they can arms traffic, drug traffic, slaving, and piracy can go on behind our backs and occur in the Space Force and be kept secret. As long as these practices are not confronted openly and the secrecy and non-disclosure brought to the public's attention with the principle of transparency, there is no right to life or respect for human or other rights to life, including travelers, ETs, who may be coming here for respite or resupply or repair. And I realize we live in a predatory sector of space, but we don't need to keep priming the pump with paranoia. So long as elites interpret life as a problem, not as the creation to be kept holy and sacred, industrialist elites will continue to devise ways of death for innocent, ignorant, and vulnerable populations, instead of devising ways to train, teach, educate, and spare human life. Monsters live among us, and they all have the privileges of wealth. All right, I saw an article, let me get it down here, in Dark Journalist. Dark Journalist on Twitter today brought up a man by the name of Jim Semivan, who is the vice president of operations for the Two Stars Academy, a 25-year CIA agent whose bio boasts of having been director of all clandestine operations in the U.S. Now, Semivan with counter-intel agent Luis Elizondo are promoting a UFO threat, all right, Any questions? Okay, more warmongering paranoia, when in fact we need to turn to peacemaking practices, skills, and behavior, and the reining in of ideologies that teach crime as doctrine. I realize more paranoia is just business, okay? It's just business. But for the families of the world, we've had enough just business, all right? And then on the coronavirus. I have some comments here off Twitter that I thought were very salient. Richard Engel said, "Don't panic. Doctors and virologists I'm speaking to say 98% of people will be fine. Even if they get COVID-19, they expect it'll go around the world, but that most people will get it, will be a little sick, and then recover. The danger is to vulnerable people, hospitals, and old age." All right. But the other sources that I have online point out that this virus began in Hunan, China, where the 5G rollout had occurred some months ago, and that the 5G and 6G radiation internet connectivity has the same symptoms and can exacerbate symptoms and can even reintroduce the virus, so that there's no guarantee of any immunity at all. Even once you've had the virus, you can get it again and again if it is spiked by the 5G or the 6G circuits in your house. Morgan the Wizard said, "I'm less worried about contracting the virus itself as much as if a large chunk of the workforce population is sick in quarantine, that will affect the supply of goods and medication that factories close. Trucks won't deliver food to the grocery store." Well, that's true, and we ought to pay attention to the fact that so much of our merchandise does come from China. We have to look carefully at both what we're buying and what we're not going to be able to buy. Katie Pavlich said, "I've seen Democrats be tougher on Trump for his coronavirus response than they've been on China, whose communist government censored and hid the outbreak, leading to its unnecessary spread around the world." And you have to wonder, was this planned? Because as we know, the elites state and believe as doctrine there are too many people and our population needs to be reduced. So what it looks to me, because the news conference of President Trump didn't talk about any of these issues. And so it leads me to wonder whether the political policies are going to meet a step up to the plate of the reality of the problem. All right. The White House provided an update on confirmed cases and how Americans should prepare to keep risk to their families and communities low. But they didn't talk about the 5G effect and similar symptoms as the virus, and how the 5G exacerbates the virus. On another topic, in the election cycle, Glenn Beck was discussing the election cycle, and he said that Bernie Sanders may call himself a Denmark-loving democratic socialist, but he is a communist and the spearhead of a dangerous movement that is much larger than himself. It's time America knows the truth about Bernie Sanders and those he works with. I grew up in the communist movement, in the Ukrainian Bolshevik movement. That's the foster family I grew up in. And I know their methods, and I know their doctrines. And all the time I post the methods of Saul Alinsky and the methods of the Frankfurt School, all right? And you know, and I know that their methods are simply to destroy whatever civil, whatever government exists there, and then scramble for the resources that are left. That's not a civil method. That's not the way to improve or progress society. And this is a bigger problem than we know, because academia has been teaching Marxism, the Frankfurt School, and Saul Alinsky since I was at university in the late 80s. And they have a whole generation or two of young people convinced out of their head tripping that socialism is somehow going to fix what capitalism couldn't fix. And they have some reality coming at them, all right? To make things worse, because the revolutionary movement is so doctrinaire and narrow-minded, there's no room in a revolutionary movement for any. You just have to look at how the Bernie group attacked the Nevada Culinary Union for refusing to support Medicare for all. Liberals are not broad-minded people. They attack in lynch mobs. And this is not going to improve or help our society in any way, all right? So the Bernie campaign field organizer in South Carolina was right. If socialism has come this far in 4 years, we better pay attention to where it's heading, all right? So we have some serious matters to consider, and it's time to put down some of our vicarious jollies and get to work dealing with our real problems. And that's the news for Wednesday, the 26th of February. And this has been Emily Craig. And thank you for coming by. If you have a comment, I'm welcome to hear it. Bye-bye.